Hello and welcome back to What's My Making, where I'm Millie and this is a space where I talk about the past, present, and future of my making, mostly knitting. Today's video is Knitting Podcast episode 14. So let's just jump straight into things. Last episode I had a bunch of finished objects and only one whip. In this episode I have 0 finished objects and a bunch of whips. Or actually not that many whips, just a few whips. Also, I'm wearing a cardigan that was a finished object last episode. This is my cardigan number 9, the second time that I knit this pattern, and I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but there are no buttons. There are just stitch markers because I still have not gone to the yarn store to look for buttons, and I've just been wearing this cardigan as kind of like an outerwear piece. Initially, I thought that I wanted dark brown buttons, like kind of buttons that would blend in with the yarn that I used. But the more that I've been wearing it, I kind of love the idea of fun pastel colored buttons. Like they could each be a different color, like my stitch markers, like I have a yellow, green, pink, purple, light pink. That could be a vibe. I don't know. It depends how I plan on wearing this. But so far, every single outfit that I've worn this with, I think the pastel colored buttons would work. Anyways, let's jump straight into whips. And I'll talk about the whip, the one whip that I had from last episode. And that is my Avenue Tee Test Knit by Tori. I don't remember how far I got in my last episode. I think I was almost done with the yoke, but I hadn't put the sleeve stitches on hold yet. And it looks like a mess. And I'll explain that in a second. It looks a little bit like a mess because I currently have 2 needles, 2 stitch holders on it. There's a lot going on. I picked up the stitches for the sleeve and not for the sleeve. I picked up the stitches for the neckline, but I didn't bind it off, so I just have this yarn dangling. So I didn't feel like doing the tubular bind off at that point. I needed to mentally prepare myself. Not that I hate doing a tubular bind off or anything like that, but it's obviously not as enjoyable as knitting stockinette in the round. So a little bit about this pattern. So this is a top-down contiguous sleeve construction fingering weight garment. It's a t-shirt. It comes with a v-neck option and a crew neck option. I am knitting the crew neck option. Okay, finally. Slightly less of a mess, slightly more you can see what is actually happening. So it's a contiguous sleeve construction, like I said. You start off by knitting the yoke flat as you work some shoulder increases, and there's this clean detail that I think I talked about last episode too that I really like. And in general, I am a fan of contiguous sleeve constructions. It's kind of like imitating the fit of a set-in sleeve without actually having to set in the sleeve. And if you've ever knit the trousseau sweater, it has a similar construction. Last fall I knit Tori's Metropolitan pullover and it has the same exact construction. I'm fairly certain the Avenue vest has the same exact construction. I feel like more and more patterns and designers are using contiguous sleeve construction, and I'm not mad about it. So yes, I put these sleeve stitches on hold and I knit the teensiest bit on the body. I'll be honest, it is moving slowly. However, I did the math. I recorded how long it takes me to knit one round, and then I took my row gauge and how many inches the body is supposed to be, and I calculated if I knit on this for 45 minutes every single day for 2 weeks, I should be able to finish the body. And there's like 3 weeks until the test knit is due, and the sleeves are super short. So far, I've been following the pattern exactly as written because it is a test knit and I'm enjoying it. I'm also really enjoying the yarn. Oh my god, did this unravel again? I really just need to do the tubular bind up. Oh no, it didn't unravel, it just got caught. Sorry for the mess. So I'm really enjoying the yarn that I'm using. I'm still on my second yarn ball, I guess, which makes sense because I haven't worked on it much. And this yarn is such a delight to knit with. I'm so sad that it's discontinued. It's the Spring Street base by North Light Fibers. They were a small fiber mill in Block Island in Rhode Island. Unfortunately, they closed a year or 2 ago. This is their fingering weight base. It's a non-superwash 100% Falklands merino, and like, just look how neon this pink is. I feel like not a lot of brands are able to come out with such bright, punchy neons on non-superwash bases, but they absolutely did. I'm my god, there's just like needles flying. I'm very much looking forward to working on this. Basically, when I'm knitting this, I have to knit it continental because I want to keep my gauge even. And when I'm knitting continental, I'm not very good at knitting without looking. So I cannot watch or read anything while knitting on this, which is why it has not been worked on as much. But I do have some audiobooks that I checked out from the library. So hopefully this week I can make more progress on this. And I don't remember if it was on YouTube or on Instagram or somewhere else. I was talking about how I'm unsure how I will wear this, and somebody said to pair it with a dark brown skirt, and that's literally all I can think about. So after I finish this, I totally want to make like a dark brown wrap mini skirt, because I mean, I'm literally wearing dark brown. I feel like this color combination is it. I love it. It eats. I also have a feeling I will have at least one yarn ball left over. So that's like 300 something yards of this. I'm unsure what I will do with it. I do have some like color work projects that I want to work, so maybe it can go into a color work project. My next strip is almost a finished object, and this was a yarn acquisition last time because this was another test knit. This is the Mia Hood by Toks knits, and the yarn was gifted for the test knit. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So the construction of this, it has a very similar construction to balaclava. If you have knit a balaclava pattern before, where you start off on the top and then you work your way down, and this project is in all brioche stitch, and this is my first time working brioche, and it is nowhere near as scary as I thought it would be. I don't know why it took me over 3 years to finally try brioche, because it's really not that hard. I thought it would be as annoying as knitting a 1x1 rib, but I'm happy to report I did find it slightly more enjoyable than knitting 1x1 rib. I think because the cadence of the stitch is more similar to a 2x2 rib or a 2x1 rib, basically because you're slipping the stitches. Anyways, on my project page for this pattern, yes, my project page for this pattern, I linked some tutorials that I found helpful since I was a first-time brioche knitter. Like Brooklyn Tweed has a video that I found really helpful. They do a breakdown of how to knit brioche and just also kind of understanding the anatomy of brioche as a stitch, because this, for example, is a bulky weight yarn. So when I was casting on, I actually read the pattern incorrectly, and I cast on with a 4.5mm needle, and I was wondering why my gauge was so off. And then the Brooklyn Tweed video explains how if you cast on the same number of stitches in brioche and stockinette, your fabric in brioche will be much wider. I think I also found a video from Pearl Soho on how to knit the decreases, and then there's also a YouTube short that I found talking about how to count the rows in brioche, because that was also throwing me off a little bit. The good news is this pattern is now live, and Toks Knits filmed a whole tutorial on it because she wanted this to be a beginner-friendly brioche project, and as somebody who has literally never knit brioche before, I can confirm that this is indeed a beginner-friendly brioche pattern. The reason why it's not a 100% finished object is, number one, I wanted to block it and get some wear out of it because there is an optional I-cord edge, and I really like the way it looks with the I-cord edge, so I would like to knit it. However, I don't know how long that will take me because it's several hundred stitches, I'm fairly certain, all the way around. So my plan is I blocked it. I just have to weave in these last two ends. All the other ends are woven in. They just need to be snipped. And I'm going to try to wear it for a week or two to see how I feel about it, because there is a slip stitch edge all throughout the scarf, so it has a very clean finish. The only place where it is a little unfinished is the initial cast on, but even then it doesn't look sloppy at all. Like if I was just to wear it like it as is, I think it looks completely fine. My one issue is it's a little bit of a shorter scarf, so when I was blocking it, I blocked it very aggressively, and I think I accidentally stretched out the hood part a little bit too much. As you can see, it is quite wide, so if I was to wear it like that, I'm just afraid that if it's windy, like the wind will just get in. I will say, I do think this is a much more stylish scarf than petite knit. So if you had that one, I just look like a straight up grandma. This one, I feel like because you have like that nice shape, which is definitely, sorry, I'm like looking at my viewfinder to see that it's not like uneven or anything. Oh yeah, because it has that nice shape, I feel like it's definitely more of a fashion piece versus the Sophie hood, which is not as cute looking, but because it sits closer to my head, it's definitely warmer. And yeah, because the scarf is short, I can only really wear it like this and then tied in the back. That's option number one. But I've also seen people wear scarves like this, like I think the one that Knitting for Olive has, where they just tie it like that and then wear the hood. That is also a vibe. But see, because I stretched it out so much in blogging, it doesn't really stay up this way. Or I guess if I tie it a little tighter. Yeah, that is staying in place now. So the next time I block it, I'm going to try to scrunch it up a little bit so I get a little bit more of the shape back into the hood. I've also been contemplating, let me take this off. I basically have a little bit over 2 balls of yarn left over from the test knit. So I've been contemplating frogging back to the last decrease or the second to last decrease because like this section is so few stitches, it doesn't take a long time to knit. And frogging back and then knitting it longer so that I get a longer scarf because I have the yarn. My only fear is I am uncertain how it will be picking up stitches in the frogged brioche. Like, will it be an absolute struggle? Especially because I guess I could frog to a row before a decrease, but even then I'm not sure how good of a job I will be able to do in picking the stitches up, and I don't want to like ruin the scarf by doing something funky. What would you do if you were me? Would you just accept it as a shorter scarf and then wear it like the way I showed? Like, I could see myself, I mean, I guess the next 2 weeks will be the trial, but I could see myself wearing it like this and just tying it in the back. Sometimes I wear my Sophie hood like that too. And I think that actually might be a little bit warmer because it keeps this area insulated. It's just the hood that struggles to stay up a little bit. I'll have to see how I like wearing it like this. If I'm able to wear it like this, I don't think I will extend it. And I just remembered maybe the I-cord edge will also help it stay up better on my head. I should say I also have a bigger head. So if you have a smaller head, maybe you'll not be facing this issue. And then, like I said, the yarn for this project was gifted for the test knit from Woolfolk. This is, I forgot the name of the yarn. Hold on 1 second. Woolfolk Luft. It is a bulky weight chainette construction. So you have a cotton core and then there's merino wool blown into it. And if you've ever used any of Woolfolk's yarns, they are just so soft. And this is just as soft as all the other ones that I've tried. And the reason why I really like this construction is I personally don't really care for mohair and suri in projects that I'm going to wear around my face or my head, just because I find that my skin is more sensitive there, and I feel like sometimes it can just be a little bit too itchy for me. But with this yarn, you do get some of the fluffiness because it's a blown yarn. However, there's absolutely no itchiness. It's literally so soft. And I find that obviously like the merino fluffiness does not shed in the same way a mohair does. So I don't really have to worry about it getting like all in my lip balm or lip gloss or whatever I'm wearing that day. When I did first get the yarn, I was a little bit concerned about the color because it has a black, like the chainette, the cotton chainette core is black and then the wool is brown. But now that I've knitted up and blocked it, like it literally just looks all brown. I can't see the black in it, especially after blocking. I mean, I guess I can see a little bit, but it just looks like brown to me when I look at it. And that is Mia hood. Clearly hot pink has been on my mind because I cast on a second hot pink sweater project. Da, 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 da. This is a modified Lakes pullover by Ozetta. And like I said, another hot pink knit. So this was actually inspired by one of her newer pattern releases, which is the Great Lakes pullover, which I was planning on purchasing it, but then I was looking at the photos of the pattern and I was like, wait, this looks exactly like the Lakes pullover. So I went on Instagram and I asked people who have knit both patterns is there a major difference between the two patterns, or is it just the gauge? And the people who responded who said they had knit both patterns said there's only two differences, the gauge and the neckline. And the neckline is such an easy thing to modify. Like, you just don't do the fold over neckline, you just knit it as a turtleneck, which I'm pretty sure I did for my first Lakes version anyways. I was like, okay, instead of purchasing the Great Lakes pullover, I'm just going to knit the Lakes pullover off gauge, and that's exactly what I did. And I think this pattern is a great kind of like practice for that, because you start off with the saddle shoulder, which is basically like a rectangle, and that's basically your gauge swatch. So I knit that up. I got my gauge from that, and then every other step that I did, I modified for my gauge. And the pattern is great because for a lot of sections, she tells you the length of what you need to knit, rather than like, she'll also say like knit X number of rows and then saying like, oh, it should be X length. So I really like having that length there, just because my row gauge is obviously different. The only mistake that I did is in shaping the front neckline, because my row gauge is obviously looser, because this is a 15 stitch gauge, whereas the Lakes pullover as written I think is an 18 stitch gauge, and then the Great Lakes pullover is 16 stitch gauge, but I'm following the 18 stitch gauge. Obviously my row gauge is looser because I'm knitting on larger needles at a looser gauge, so I should have increased for the neckline at a faster increase rate. I should have started increasing every row, basically. So my neckline is a little bit deep. However, I am sure that knitting a long rib turtleneck will help pull that in, so I'm really not overly concerned with that. So like I said, the construction of this, you start off with your two saddles, you pick up stitches for the back, you pick up stitches for the front, and you join in the round. I think when I first knit this, I test knit this, I think it was like 2.5 years ago. It was the first time I ever knit a saddle shoulder construction, and I personally found it very easy to understand. And at that point, I think I had been knitting less than a year, so I would definitely say this is a beginner friendly pattern, and I enjoy my first version, and I'm sure I will enjoy this version as well. The yarn combination that I'm using for this is a combination of unspun wool with a strand of silk mohair. So the unspun wool that I'm using is the Hillesvåg 4 guard in their limited edition pink colorway from October. This was a colorway they put out for, I think, a breast cancer awareness campaign, and part of the money was donated to breast cancer research, I'm fairly certain. And then I'm holding it with this strand of silk mohair from La Bien Aimée in the colorway Tang. And I bought these yarns like over a year apart, so I didn't really have any plans of using them together. Then I saw them together in Stash, and I was like, wait, these work so perfectly together. Oh my god. I think on camera, let me to the side a little. I think on camera they do look more similar, but in real life, I feel like this is way more orange than it appears on camera. So on camera, it looks like obviously these two should go together, but in real life, they do really look like two different colors. But the silk mohair just has the camera a little bit. This silk mohair just has so many pretty streaks of other colors. Like, there's a little bit of yellow, there's lighter oranges, there's a hot pink, there's a dark pink, and it's a really, really pretty mohair. And I'm still on my first ball of mohair. This mohair literally goes on and on and on. I mean, I'm also knitting at a pretty loose gauge, so I don't need as much as if I was knitting on like a 24 stitch gauge. But this is a 50-gram ball of mohair, and it comes with 550 yards. So that is a lot. That's like almost 100 yards more than most other hand-dyed mohair bases. Unfortunately, this is yet another discontinued yarn. La Bien Aimée no longer makes this base, so if your local yarn store carries it, I totally recommend giving it a try. I do think it doesn't have as much of a halo as some other mohairs, but I honestly don't mind that. And I really like how these two are knitting up together. Like, it is hot pink, but then there's just like little flecks of orange throughout. You can see like the little flecks of orange. I think I'm centered. I only have one more whip, and that is my 2 at a time sock project. So this was another yarn that I think was an acquisition last video. It was my last Joann's purchase, RIP Joann's. I bought 2 balls of the Patton's Croy self-striping sock yarn in the colorway Midnight Orchid in an attempt to avoid second sock syndrome. And because I have so many 9-inch circular sock needles, I decided to knit them 2 at a time on 2 different circular needles. So I basically cast on one, knit the ribbing and started the leg, and then I cast on the second and knit the ribbing and knit the leg, and then I did the heel on sock number 1, did the heel on sock number 2, yada yada yada. And actually it's been pretty fun. I feel like I'm kind of like in a race with myself, because let's say I'm working on sock number 1 and then I put it down. I know, okay, sock number 2, the next time I want to knit as much on sock number 2 that I surpass sock number 1. And then the next time I go back to knitting sock number 1, so I'm like, okay, I have to get further than I did on sock number 2. And it's just like a back and forth. And it's been going pretty well. The only reason I think these are not finished is because I don't really knit socks at home. So these are really only like going out projects if I'm in the car, public transportation, or if I'm waiting somewhere. And I guess I just haven't had as much time doing those things this month. But also, I guess they're working up slower because I'm knitting 2 socks at a time as opposed to 1. My mild annoyance with the sock yarn. So 1, I really like, I guess before my mild annoyance, I'll talk about the things I like. 1, obviously, I like that it is a affordable sock yarn. Obviously, it was even more affordable at Joann's. I got both of these for like $6. And now if I were to purchase them, 1 ball is more than $6. But it is what it is. It's still relatively affordable. I saw that Woolen Company started carrying them, so I will definitely be buying more colors of the sock yarn from them in the future. Yes, I like how affordable it is. I also like that it has like a rusticy wool feel. Like, this is not a smooth, super soft yarn, and I personally like that because I find that the socks wear better, and I just like woolly wools. It is still super wash, so you can throw it in the wash, but it is not like a super duper soft super wash. I also like that it comes in a ton of colors, and it is affordable for a self-striping yarn, because I know like Regia and Opal do self-striping sock yarns, but honestly in the US they're really not that affordable. I'm fairly certain that my local yarn stores are like $25, versus I could just pay a few dollars more and get a hand-dyed sock yarn. So for me, it doesn't really make sense to get those yarns. But back to my 1 minor annoyance. These are from the exact same dye lot. I bought them on the exact same day. I'm doing center pulls from both of them, and they were round in opposite directions, so the striping sequence is in opposite directions from each other. And I didn't notice until I was like well into the leg on the second sock, because I had started knitting on it while watching The White Lotus and I wasn't looking at what I was doing. And it was only after the episode was over, I was like, oh, these are not the same. So these socks are sisters, not twins, as I've been saying. And I finished the heel flap and gusset, all the gusset decreases on both socks. So usually the foot doesn't take me that long because I have a relatively small foot. I also tried something different on this sock. So I usually cast on with more stitches and then knit my ribbing with more stitches and then decrease afterwards, because when I was a newbie sock knitter, I could never get the cast on and ribbing over my, I don't know what to call it, like this part of my foot. Like my ankle to the top of the foot. That's not my arch, is that my instep? I don't know what it's called, but that part of my foot I could never get over. So I started doing this modification where I would cast on more stitches and knit a larger ribbing before going down in the stockinette, and that worked out great. And then this time, what I decided to do is, when I'm doing my gusset decreases, I am not decreasing as many stitches. So I'll just give you the numbers because I'm not following any sort of pattern. It's just like my own vanilla sock. I cast on 64 stitches, I knit the ribbing, and then I decrease 4 stitches, and I knit the leg. Then I do the heel flap and gusset, and then when I'm doing my gusset decreases, instead of decreasing down to 60 stitches, I decrease down to 64 stitches. And I did this because I noticed sometimes on my socks on the foot, they are just a little bit too tight because I do have a wider foot. So I'm gonna see how it goes with this pair of socks, how it goes decreasing down to 64 stitches instead of my usual 60. Hopefully these will be a finished object by this weekend, but if I don't finish them, I think I'll probably put them on pause because I signed up for yet another testnet. This is testnet number 3, I think. That kind of goes into my future cast on plans, which I guess can be the next section. So I applied to testnet Fiorita socks. Fiorita by In Her Skein. It's a really, really pretty sock pattern. I will put a better picture on the screen. Here is it on Instagram. It has like the, oh no, it has the like Estonian inlay knitting, I think is the name of the technique. It's really, really pretty, and I love how it goes all along the top of the foot, because how cute would these be in a pair of ballet flats? These are just meant to be worn with flats. I can already envision it. So I haven't decided what colors I want to knit with it. Somebody in the tester group has been using, so people have been talking about the different yarns they're using for their contrast colors, and people are finding out that using a yarn that fluffs up like a non-superwash yarn tends to work better for that motif. And I have knit a pair of socks with a similar type of motif, like the Estonian inlay knitting by Alex. I have the book over here. Alex Bird. I've knit one of her socks that have that too, and I used a single ply yarn for the inlay knitting part, and that fluffed up really nicely. And somebody in the testing group has been using Drops Air, and theirs looks so good. So I am a little bit tempted to buy a bottle of Drops Air to give it a try, but I'm going to look through my stash first to see what I have. I've also been toying with the idea of using a mohair. I do want these to be socks that are visible when I wear them, so I have to be critical with the colors. Like usually when I knit socks, I'm just like whatever with the colors because I'm just wearing them inside the house or wearing them in sneakers or boots. You're not really seeing them. However, because I do want to wear these with flats, I have to think about how I would wear them in an outfit and then make a sensible color choice. Other than that, I really just want to focus on finishing up the whips that I talked about today, because I am starting to get in a mood for these spring cast-ons, especially because when I was making my winter knitting plans, it was from January to the end of March, and it is now the end of March. But spring knitting plans will be its own dedicated video. I don't have any acquisitions because I did not purchase any yarn this month. However, I did get some books from the library that I thought it would be fun to talk about. Before I talk about the books, I just remembered I have also been sewing a little. I made this like little, I have to fix it, but this is a whip. Also, this little like lip gloss keychain holder that I'm making for a friend. I want to, I think, shorten it a little bit. And I want to make one for myself as well. Oh, and then that also reminds me, I've been making stitch markers. I'll put in pictures of these stitch markers because I try to show them now. It will just continue to get darker. Okay, here are some of the stitch markers I made. Some of them are already in use on my project. So these two, I had gotten some charms last year from Target's like jewelry section. Is it focusing? These two are from some charms that I got last year in Target's jewelry section. And these are all I just made with beads. So these two on the end are decrease and increase stitch markers. So when I'm knitting socks or raglans and I want to keep track of which one is a decrease round and which one is an increase round, I could use those. So like the plain stitch marker would be just a knit round, and then the one with the beads on them would be the increase or decrease round. And then I also just made these like little jelly bean bead progress keepers, and these were all very, very easy to make. I followed a tutorial for the first one from Nitty Natty's video. She had like a video from like 6 years ago, but it was still relevant today, and I made a bunch of stitch markers. And because I have so many more supplies, I will definitely be making more. They're super fun to make. So I checked out a few books from my local library this month, and they are all about natural dyeing. So this is The Modern Natural Dyer. This one is Natural Dyeing. And then this is the one that I'm most excited about. Craft of the Dyer, Color from Plants and Lichens of the Northeast. Because if you follow me on Instagram, you may see that I am giving lichen dyeing a try. It all started when I was watching YouTube videos about finding which plants to dye, which like flowers you can plant to have your own natural dyes. And then under the recommendations, there was a video about lichen dyeing, and I'll link the video below. I watched a few videos, but I'll insert like a picture on the screen of how ammonia soaked lichen dye looks. It gives you like a very vibrant purpley pink color. So over the past month, I've just been collecting lichen basically from dead branches because lichen takes a long time to grow. So they say to not take it off of trees or rocks or anything like that. But if you find it fallen on the ground, which is what I have been sourcing from, you can use that, and then you soak it in an ammonia bath for at least 3 months, and then you dye it like you would any other dye with the stove, yada yada yada. I say as if I know how to dye yarn. But anyways, I'm very, very excited to give that a try. I'm a little bit worried about how much lichen I have, if it's going to be enough, because ideally I would love to dye a sweater quantity's worth of yarn. This book on the top was recommended in a lot of the natural dyeing YouTube videos that I was watching, specifically in regards to lichen dyeing. So hopefully it is useful. I'm fairly certain I was reading another book and it was saying like lichen dyeing is very potent. It can dye up to 50 times the volume. And I'm okay with the color being light. I just want there to be enough color that it looks like it was dyed. For instance, like the reason I haven't really been interested in the avocado or onion skin dyeing is the color is just like too pale for me. Just looks like it hasn't really been dyed, in my opinion. So hopefully I have better luck with this. Please, please wish me luck. My expectations started off very low. The closer it gets to actually starting, I'm like slowly building up my expectations. Like I just want something pinky purple, something in the pinkish purple family. I'm okay if it's lighter, as long as it looks like it's been dyed. In terms of media, I have read so many books this month. I know last month I was in a total reading slump. This month I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, and it just got me out of my slump. And I read so many books since then that I don't think I could fit them all in this video. So I have been thinking of sharing a video about everything I read while knitting in March. If you think that'd be an interesting video, please do let me know. I did also read like a variety of stuff. Read some romance books, I read some mystery books, I actually finished a history book. Yeah, those are like the three main genres. I read one book that I think is historical fiction, and I'm in the middle of another book by that author. But mostly it's been books that I've really been enjoying, which was nice after not really finishing anything in February. And then I guess in terms of other media, I watched The Residence on Netflix last weekend. Really enjoyed it. Totally recommend it. If you enjoy like a kooky murder mystery kind of show, it definitely reminded me of the second Knives Out movie, was it Glass Onion? Like it had that kind of vibe. It wasn't perfect, like the pacing maybe wasn't the best, and there were some parts with like the main character's personality, like she's really into bird watching. I feel like they just stretched out parts of that in some episodes, and I'm like, I don't really care about this. But overall, I enjoyed it and I would recommend it. It was a very fun watch, and it's kind of making me excited for summer TV. I hope we have more fun shows like that. I think that is the end of this episode. If you enjoyed watching, please feel free to give it a like and follow along for the next episode, which, if people are interested in watching it, I will do the everything I read in March while knitting video. Otherwise, the next episode will be my spring knitting plans. And even if I do make that video, the everything I read in March video, the video after that will be my spring knitting plans. And as always, I would love to know what you were working on while watching this video, because I'm nosy and I love to know what's on other people's needles. Aside from that, I have nothing else to say. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Happy knitting, and hope to see you again next time. Bye!